Does it feel like you're leaving money on the table? Struggling to increase your productivity and profitability? Check out the Personal Power Transformation Program at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com/transformation and apply for a consultation with Jean Border to get things moving in the right direction. Welcome to another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. It's not just about dreaming. It's about making those dreams a practical reality. Subscribe to us via your favorite network by visiting our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. Now, get ready. Your journey to success starts here.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Jean Border, with another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, where we talk everything energy, mindset, whatever, technical tips to better your business. Before I get to my special guest, he's really cool, by the way, before I get to my special guest, I want to remind everyone that if you're having financial issues, tensions around whatever economic stuff is going on in your world, and you're into tapping EFT protocols, there's a freebie for you below in the show notes. Just click on the link if you don't have access to the show notes right in front of you. It's jeanborder.com/income. Just some free tapping protocols for you to help calm down your nervous system so you can be a state of calm while you're making these money-related decisions. So you're not reacting, just making practical decisions, okay? And now, on to my guest. This is George Dubec, and he is a network guy, and he has a really cool career path that got him from where he was to where he is now, and I'll let him talk about all things networking. But before we start, I want to say welcome, George. How are you?
Okay, really great. It's good to be on your show. I know that your listening audience is tuned in to find out some good tips, ideas, and advice. And I've been around a long time, 77 years. So I have definitely a lot of experience.
Cool. So talk to me about how you went on a winding path. We have a little bit of a state in common, which is Ohio. You have a history in Ohio. I have some history in Ohio. Talk to me about how you got started and how you got from where you were to where you are now in your 70 plus years of life in the business world that you're in.
Yeah, there's a lot of combinations of variables that, of course, enter everybody's life. A lot of it has to do with family, children, business. They all intertwine and interact. So, what happens when you go through life? You start out with a job or career, and then life happens and things get involved, and it's not necessarily all business things. A lot of personal things make you go down these winding paths. So, I started out back in 1967. I got a job at General Motors in Ohio, Packard Electric Division. They were 12,000 people in an assembly plant back in the golden era of General Motors. And I was there for 18 years. I worked my way up the executive ladder. So the first part of my life was all corporate, basically 9 to 5. You come to work, you were structured. I started out, Gene, you had to wear white shirts and ties with no patterns or designs to work. How do you like that?
And there we get white collar workers, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Everybody had to wear white collars. And believe it or not, what happened was this was very famous. There was a gentleman named John DeLorean.
Yep.
Who became the general manager of Pontiac Division. And he was a young up and rising star at General Motors, and he started coming into board meetings wearing pastel shirts. And all of a sudden, because they allowed him, everybody else followed suit. And then all of a sudden, we started wearing colored shirts, patterned ties. So, John DeLorean, it's your fault.
Peer pressure. That's funny.
Yeah, well, that's, in fact, we used to go into the offices at General Motors, and people would smoke cigarettes. There was ashtrays everywhere, pipes. Remember pipes?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of guys would come in and they'd be sucking on these pipes. It's just so crazy how, things change and evolve and stuff. But anyway, so 18 years at General Motors, I was corporate. I lived in Ohio. It was cold, wet, rainy. I was married at the time. I got married at 20 years old. I had 2 kids. So that was kind of like my life, okay? I'm married. I got 2 kids. I got a good job. I'm moving up the corporate ladder. And then all of a sudden, the 70s hit, 1975, and it became the disco era. So what happened was, okay, now this is crazy. A lot of it was in my control, but out of my control. Anyway, 1975, now think about this. There was 12,000 people working in our assembly plant, and 9,000 were women. So that means you had 3 women for every guy that came to that plant every day. So what do you think was going to happen? It got crazy. And the majority of the women that they hired were right out of high school, young girls for the assembly line, no education, no training, making at that time, think about this, in the late 70s, $8 an hour, full benefits. They got new car discounts. So what happened, Gene, is we had, at that time, the second highest divorce rate in the country next to Orange County, California, because the women were making as much money or more money than their husbands and boyfriends. So when women start to get financially independent, they put up with a lot less from their mates. So we lived in Warren, Ohio at the time, and we had a place called the Strip. And every Friday night, the Strip was full of all these divorced women or single women out on the streets in brand new cars, going to the discos. And then that was the disco era. So you can fill in the blanks. You can imagine what happened. It was just crazy. We had guys coming from Akron, Canton, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. Everybody was coming to meet our gals. And we called it the Strip. And there must have been 10 discos. And they were just packed every night. The Bee Gees, Burn Baby Burn, dancing. Everybody was dressed up. The guys wore suits. The women they had their fingernails painted, beautiful looking. They wore dresses, not cut up blue jeans. And, so it was crazy. So it just, everything started to happen. It was like the world just started going kind of crazy, and everybody was making a lot of money. That's the other thing. We had money. Everybody had, General Motors had new cars. So it was pretty cool. So anyway, I got divorced as one of the divorced crowd at that time. And so after a period of time, still at General Motors, I started looking at guys that had been there 30, 40 years. And I said, you know what? Do I want to stay here the rest of my life and just work at General Motors? Like, is that it? What's that phrase? Is that all there is? Just, I started at 20 years old. And at the time I was like around 30, 32. And I says, okay, instead of going west, young man, I went south, young man. So then I moved to Florida. I bought my job out at General Motors. They had a buyout program where you can go in. And I said, I'm going to go and try, I don't know, I'm going to see what life is all about. I had no goals, no plans. I bought out my job. I moved to South Florida. And right at that point in time, I met my now wife, Kathy. She was single, never had kids, and I was divorced, and we met. I was 32, she was 22. We fell madly in love. We were soulmates. Everything was great. She loved adventure. She was very much like me, so we packed up and moved to South Florida. And from there, we just started doing entrepreneurial things. In fact, from 1985, when I came to Florida, to 1992, we had the largest singles network in South Florida. When we came down here, we found out there were so many people that were single. So we started, it was called the Find a Mate Singles Network. So what we did is we helped people. This was before the internet and online dating. This is when computers first came out. So we started computer matching people. We had classes. We used to teach a class called Find a Mate at the local colleges. I was on Sally Jesse Raphael, Phil Donahue, Faith Daniels. And then at that time, I created, do you remember back in the day when they had the motivational vinyl covered 6 cassette programs?
Of course. I have
Okay.
bunches of them.
Okay. Maybe you have mine. It was called Find Me. And we did a national infomercial, and we sold a vinyl cassette tape book or album with 6 cassette tapes and a workbook on how to find a mate. So we did all of that cool stuff. And then in 1992, my wife got pregnant, and we decided to sell the business because we were having these parties, late night parties. We had singles cruises. We were going to have a baby. And I said, we can't be in this business anymore. It's just too much. It was right before online dating. And I wish I would have continued with online dating, but I didn't. I got into the tech world, but in a different way. I started a business where we were doing hosting of websites at the time. And then we started doing building of the websites. And then we started doing search engine optimization. And then we got into the high tech world. So in 1997, we started a company called WebStream, and it just evolved. And so that was 18 years in the high tech world and business. Now, that doesn't count all the side hustles I did. That was just kind of the main things that I was involved in. But I was at one time a stained glass artist. I used to create stained glass on the side. My wife and we used to sell stained glass art. I actually became a professional flamenco dancer.
Oh, my goodness.
The flamenco dancing.
Yeah.
And we did that. I taught my little daughter. At that time, my wife and again, she was pregnant. We had a little daughter. So we taught her how to dance, and we used to go and do shows on the weekends with all the flamenco guitar players in Miami. And my daughter, her little girlfriends would dance. So anyway, those are just some of the things that I've done. About 4 years ago, before the pandemic, I wrote 6 books. I had never wrote a book in my life. And so I've written books. I got books now on how to network. Basically, the books are all about business and social networking, taking all my years out there in corporate, in network marketing, in direct sales, every kind of networking I have been part of. So I took all of my experience and I wrote some books about it. And so I don't know, maybe I should stop talking. That's kind of a thumbnail sketch of how I got to where I'm at today. And then I retired in 2010, and I became an entrepreneur doing all kinds of whatever I want, all kinds of stuff.
So let's go with the last business that you talked about. When you decided to start it, was it your networking background that allowed it to be a success so quickly, or what kind of challenges did you have to deal with?
Well, when I retired, what I decided is, okay, how do you start this process to be an entrepreneur and get people to notice like your expertise? And so then that's why I wrote the books. I wrote 6 books about business and social networking. And then at the time, what I was going to do is promote the books and my coaching and training, and the pandemic hit right when I finished my books. So you know what happened then? Nobody was networking. Nobody was doing anything. So I'm going to sell networking books to people that don't even go out of the house. So that was kind of a crazy time. And then when people started going back out, I decided, you know what? I don't want to just go out and sell books and travel around the country and doing little shows here and public speaking. And that's kind of a long path. It takes a long time to generate interest. So, and I'm 77 years old. So then I thought, what's the best way to get really recognized and get publicity and credibility for what your expertise is? So then I decided the best way is a reality show. So I'm in a process right now of taking all my expertise and training and information, and I'm developing a reality show based on business and social networking. So we're going to teach people how to find a mate using their social network, how to get more clients, how to get funding, all the different things that people are looking for. We're going to teach them how to use networking to do that. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm in the process of working with TV platforms and developing my reality TV show.
And so from my point of view, what I heard you say is you're very good at analyzing what is true right now and pivoting when it looks as though what is true right now is not going to get you your desired outcome.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you have to, because today's world is so volatile, it changes so dramatically. You got to be on top of the trends and so forth. The other thing, people keep telling me that I should do my own podcast, which would be perfect for my expertise and all that. But then it's the same thing. You got to do a podcast. You got to build a following. It takes time. If I get my reality show in the air, it's instant. Well, you probably know this. Anybody that's on television with reality show, even if it's a terrible show, get recognition. It's amazing. You can have the worst show in the world.
And some of them are horrendous. And you're like, why? Number one, why did they put it on the air? Number two, why would anybody watch it?
Yeah.
But these people become famous and they expect to be noticed. I'm like, what the heck? What have we turned into here? But it's human nature.
Well, it's funny. A couple of years ago, I went to the Indianapolis 500, and the honorary guest was some guy that was a fisherman on the deadliest catch. And I'm going, what? I mean, they introduced him, and it's like everybody's cheering, and I go, this guy's just a fisherman.
Yep.
Like, really?
But he's a famous fisherman.
He's a famous fisherman.
And he knew how to market himself, or he wouldn't have been there.
Exactly. So that, to me, getting on reality TV, even though a lot of people are not necessarily, everybody's on the internet or they're on social media, especially the younger generation, it still has a tremendous power is on TV. And then I'll share one other thing about the power of radio and TV. I forgot to mention, during the time I was in the tech world, for 12 years, we had a sideline radio show called the Internet Business Hour. And we had 36 cities that we had brokered the show in. And at the time, it was kind of fascinating because we got customers. It was really a lead generator. The people that listened to the show, it's called the Internet Business Hour, and then they would become our customers. And one day, I'll never forget, there was a local guy that listened to my show. He comes in the office, and as we're sitting there talking, he kept looking at me every once in a while. He'd go, you're the guy on the radio, right? I go, yeah. And he would just look at me like, whoa. And then we'd talk a little bit, and then he'd look at me again and go, you're the guy on the radio, right? I go, yeah, I'm the guy. So it's like, I'm the guy. I'm on radio. I'm an expert. So it's just kind of crazy. So one thing I learned, though, Gene, is I went to a conference where they had all these social media experts, and they had this one young kid. He was making, I don't know, $1 million using some social media platform. But we had a little breakout group, and he was talking to us, and he goes, you know what? He says, the secret is just keep trying and trying and trying stuff. He says, kind of like throwing what against the wall. Keep trying. He says, I failed so many times trying stuff. He said, I finally hit the jackpot. And he says, what everybody's attracted to today is not good material, good products or service, not even stuff that is credible. It's noise. He says, make a lot of noise, be loud and boisterous and just get attention, get views and likes. That's all. And that's what people are doing today. How many likes did I get? Doesn't matter if I'm any good. Now, I don't know what kind of audience you might have, but the latest famous kind of focus on that story is, have you heard about the Hawk Tuah girl?
No.
Okay. Anyway, some young girl, and this is kind of an adult-related thing, but it was at some kind of an outdoor thing, and some young girl, like 25-year-old, cute little blonde, they put a microphone in her face, and they go, what's the best way to please a man? Well, I'm not going to I won't go into details, but she made a statement in 10 seconds, and she is famous. She's called the Hawk Tuah girl. And last month, she made over $300,000. She has no background, no credibility, nothing. She's not even pretty. She's cute, little blonde that worked in a bar. And because she got the microphone and said this really crazy, outlandish thing, she's famous. And people who sometimes work all their lives, they get educated. They try to write books. They try to perfect their craft. They go nowhere. So that's the society we live in. How do you get attention? That's it. How can you get attention for what you're doing? It's sad. I don't like that. I don't particularly care for it. But even myself, I've changed myself because now when I go out, I have become more dramatic, more animated than I used to be. I used to be more serious and credible. People don't like that. They want a noise. They want you to be loud. They want you to be over the top. So, in fact, you know when they interview people to be on these reality shows, they actually interview you based on, again, how animated, how crazy, how loud you are. So that's the tip of the day. I don't know. I'm just telling people, you got to get noticed.
Yeah, I one of my friends is the casting director for some of the shows, some of the TV shows that are out there, and it's like I wouldn't want to do that job, But to each his own.
That was like I remember this was back in 1990. In fact, people can look me up on YouTube. Look for the Sally Jesse Raphael show, and it was called "Always a Bridesmaid, Never a Bride." At that time we were in the singles business, so we had 7 girls came on stage that had been in many weddings, multiple weddings, but no one had ever asked them to get married. So we were supposed to come on and give them advice. Anyway, in the green room before we come on the show, they told us over and over again, make sure you get into altercations with these females. Make sure you argue with them. Make sure you bring up issues. Make sure you get them started. Don't just get up there and just talk and give advice. So again, this was back in 1990. They started that whole shtick. The Jerry Springer type thing.
I cringe even when I hear his name because it is just so repulsive to me because I'm more the other end. I'm more focused on ethics, reputation, that kind of stuff, right? Be good at what you do, be trustworthy, all that stuff. And these shows are the ones that get the views. They're into the shock, right?
Actually, before Jerry Springer died, I heard an interview and he said that he actually felt kind of remorseful about his show, but he still did it for money. And that's the other thing I'm finding out today. All the ethics, morals, values, etiquette, all the old things that we used to revere are out the window. Everything today is noise, being loud, and money. If you have money, people love you. It's all about money. That's all that people care about. They don't care about if they hurt somebody, if they override you, if they overrun you. And even though people say it's not in their arena, I don't care. Everybody's enamored with money. It's weird.
And you don't even have to have money. People just have to think that you have money.
Oh, that's exactly.
It's perception. Everything is perception.
Yep. We have a lot of people down here in South Florida with Lamborghinis and mansions, and they're broke. And they got somebody chasing them. So, in fact, some of the wealthiest people I know really are very quiet and kind of in the background, and they're not out there running around. In fact, that's what I'm involved in, helping people do fundraising for startups and mature businesses. And everybody's looking for investors, but they're not out there. Like, you can't go to a networking event. About the only place that you can find true investors today is you got to go to a very high ticket charity event. Pay like $300 a plate or $500 a plate and go there, and you'll probably run into high net worth individuals. Or you can buy a ticket and go to Mar-a-Lago and hang out with Donald Trump up here in Florida. Whether you like him or not, people are enamored to go to Mar-a-Lago and have an event or a dinner. Why? Because it's all perception of glitz and glamour and money and people and big cars. And so that's our society, I guess.
Well, even the business, the online marketing is incorporating some of that charity type work. The latest strategy, I'll say, is hold an event, charge people a minimal amount, tell them it's all going to be donated to a specific charity. You hold your event, and then you sell a big ticket item.
Yeah. There is a lot of multi-level marketing companies are now tagging on to a charity that they give a certain percentage of all their earnings to charities. Whether they do or not, I have no idea. But yeah, that's another gimmick that people like to use. Anything to attract people to join your deal or to get involved with whatever you're doing. So hopefully that money goes to a good cause. That would be great if it does, but sometimes I'm leery.
A lot of times what I see are the charities are funding like microloans for people in impoverished locations who can't get money. So they'll loan them like $1,000 or whatever to start up their business. So those seem to be well-researched companies that are actually charities that are actually doing good work. Some of them are like Save the Planet stuff. Some will just find various animal rescues. So if it is actually going to a good charity, there's value in that, right? You get the information, you're donating through a third party to a charity, right?
Well, yeah.
You are getting and
today, the big thing is dogs and kids.
Yeah.
The hijacking charities for, kids being hijacked and pets. People, I mean, those are the ones that really attract people probably more than anything else. And then, of course, the third one would be the green, the environment.
Yep.
Whatever helps the environment. So, yeah, you're right. Those are the biggies there.
So since I called you the networking guy, talk to me about how people can start networking even if they don't want to go to the huge events like they used to. Is there a way to do that online, or do you still recommend going in person?
Well, I have some tips like to teach people how to become an ultimate networker. I call it five easy steps. In fact, I wrote one book, Gene. It's my thick book, which it's like the Bible of networking. And then I decided, you know what? People don't read books anymore. I wrote all this stuff. Nobody's going to read all this. So I made a summarization, and I made a second book called Five Easy Steps on How to Be an Ultimate Networker. And I condensed and summarized it into a smaller book. So that's why I have my, right here, 5 easy steps. Everybody wants easy, fast, and quick. So anyway, the first thing I would tell everybody, in fact, I told my young grandkids who are going to college, you got to start a database. Everybody you talk to, when I come home at night, when I go to an event, or everybody's email that sends me an email, I grab their email address and I put it into my database in a category. Like here's a business owner. Here is a single person. Here is a person that's in sales. So I build a database, and right now I have a database of about 5,000 good email addresses. A lot of people say, I got 100,000 emails. Most of those emails are no good. They bounce.
Dead, yeah.
I keep my email database up to speed. I keep it in good, credible stance. And that's what I tell people. And I told my grandkids when they go to college, I said, every kid you meet, get their contact information, put it into your database. Because when you graduate, 3 years from now, you might go, wow, I wish I had the information to talk to that kid I met or that teacher, to go back and call your teachers, get your teacher's information, start building a database and continue to grow that as you go along in business, no matter what you're doing. Build a database of people for resources, for whatever. And I created a monster actually though, Gene, because every day I probably get 3 to 5 requests. Like I just got a request this morning. I got a text. Hey, George, where's a good place I can start a weekly meetup for musicians? Right there, I got 6 clubs in that area that I could refer. Or George, hey, you got a good personal injury attorney, or a good chiropractor. I just, because everybody knows that I got this database. So I kind of created a little bit of a monster there. But you know what? The best thing I love to do is I love to help people that I know get clients or help them find something. I'll tell you what, to me, that I don't care about the money. I think that's the greatest thing in the world. I love to help people. And that gives me the greatest pleasure right there. So anyway, that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is you have to learn how to have casual conversation. You got to be able to go up to somebody and find hot buttons, I call it. Create rapport. And of course, the number one way to have rapport is you find out if they have a family, you find out what college they went to, you find out where they live, you try to find something that you have in common. Oh, you went to Ohio State. I went to Youngstown State. We both were, like, we talked, you mentioned the Ohio thing. Oh, right away, as soon as you say Ohio, we're connecting, I don't know, it has some kind of meaning, other than just peripheral stuff. So if you have kids, it's a connection. If you have dogs, you can talk about dogs. But you always want to interject personal stuff when you're meeting people in business. It's always great. So that's the second tip. And then the biggest tip on networking is follow up and follow through. I went to an event Thursday night. I was there for an hour, and all the connections that I made, it took me 3 hours to go, when I got home, to go through and put all these people in categories. I got all their contact information, and then I did follow-up emails. I made follow-up phone calls. I texted some people. And the other thing that I do, Gene, is when I meet somebody of significance at an event, I take my phone and I go, oh, give me your contact information. And then I take my phone and I take a selfie of me and that person. And then the next day, I send them my contact information again with the selfie with the two of us or the three of us or whoever's in it. And so I'm trying to continue to make sure they have me on the top of their mind. They know who the hell I am or remember me.
That's a really useful tip, because in the world of phone pictures, I'll call them, it's very common and people don't think anything of it anymore. But if you miss that opportunity, it's gone, right? And so all the people that could have been good visibility for you, had you taken a picture, and even put it on your website or put it in, in a conversation with one of your friends, if you miss that opportunity, you may not get it again.
And then here's another thing that is just absolutely horrible. Most people no longer have business cards. That's the crazy, I don't get it. They don't have that. I go to events. I went to this event last night. It was all about investors and founders. Everybody that I went up and talked to, I said, do you have a business card? One guy had a business card out of probably 10 people I connected with. Some of them had virtual cards. Some of them had, a couple of people gave me their QR code, which I went to their link. The QR code went to their LinkedIn, and I went to the LinkedIn, but there's no contact information. They didn't have a phone number or an email address. So I go, what are you giving me this for? How am I supposed to connect with you when I don't have any information? So anyway.
That's the latest fad. That's what they're being taught.
Right.
They're saying business cards are no longer the thing. Now you need a book, which becomes your business card. Well, no, it doesn't. But that's what people are being taught, right? Now, I have business cards, I have a book, I have QR codes, I've got all that stuff. But I carry business cards with me because it's very easy. It's very simple.
Well,
a few months from now, they may find that and say, oh, that's right, I remember that person.
Now, here's what I do that is the final piece of the puzzle. This is an old-fashioned clipboard. So when I find somebody, when I find somebody that is really, I want to really follow up with this person, okay? I really like what they're doing or they like what I'm doing, whatever. I take out the clipboard. I say, look, please, let's write your name, your phone number, and email address. And don't let them write it because you can't read their hieroglyphics.
Yep.
I ask them and I go real slow. I calm them down. I say, look, please, what's your name? What's your phone number? What's your email address? And then I make a note. Follow up with a phone call, or this guy's in the catering business, or this guy's in high tech, and this guy has a great product. And then sometimes I'll write their website. So I come home, and this is my hit list. This is the first thing I do. I go through this list, and I go, okay, these are the key people that I'm going to follow up with. Now, follow up within the next day, no longer than 2 days. To communicate, phone call, text, or email or whatever you arranged with this person. Then the critical part is most people don't even do that. They don't follow up. But then the critical part is the follow through. Once you make that original connection, either email, text, or phone call, a lot of times these people forgot you already. Even with the pictures and all that, they don't, who the hell's this guy? I don't know. I kind of remember him. You got to do a process, 2, 3, 4 connections or more to really get their attention on what you're trying to accomplish with them. And that's hard for people to do that. It's very hard. It's not simple. People just give up. They'll send an email to somebody, they don't hear back, they forget about them. Yeah, but that's somebody that you really wanted to do business with. So you got to follow through. And then, of course, in sales, what's the highlight of a salesman? 5, 6, 7 contacts before you get a sale, right? I don't know, whatever number. But nobody walks up to somebody and right away gets a sale on the spot. You know, it doesn't happen. So
yeah, that's one of the things that irritates me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn and someone will want to connect and I'll, accept them as a connection. And then immediately, hi, this is what I do. Let's get on a call to talk about it. Well, no, I don't know you. I'm not going to hire you. I haven't learned anything about you yet.
Right.
So.
Yeah, LinkedIn, it's a good system for business to connections, but it's a lot of work. In fact, I know some people that don't do anything but networking on LinkedIn, but what you just said, it's connecting with the right person, but trying to get them to relate to you, not just hitting it with your business. Like, hey, I saw you're the CEO of this company. Tell me a little bit about your product, or, where do you sell your product, or how many customers do you have? Like, you ask them, and once you get them going, and then create some kind of rapport, then you can kind of interject your stuff. And that's another good point. When you go to a personal, in-person networking event, when I meet people, the first thing I say is, hey, let me just ask you a question. What are you doing here? What are you looking for? Are you looking for funding? Are you looking for clients? How can I help you? Before I even say anything about what I do. So you're always looking to help somebody to see what they're all about. So that's another important tip.
Cool. So have you always been this way where you wanted to keep track of everyone you meet, or did that come later?
Well, it kind of did when I was in, I had my own business. I mean, I had a database of customers, prospects, and I had a personal database, in fact, you remember back, this was probably in the 70s, the little black book. Mm-hmm. I used to have all of my friends. Well, this was also when you were single.
Yep.
You had this little tiny book and you wrote phone numbers in it.
Yep. The
little black book. I mean, it was crazy. If you lost that book, oh my God, there's all those girls that I met over the last couple of years. So anyway, so I was loosely connected. I wasn't as diligent. Oh, this is interesting. When I wrote my book, back in 2019, my books, I wrote 6 books in 1 year. I have this thing called performance tracking, where before you read my book, I suggest that you take a test to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on how good of a networker you are right now today. So I wrote the book and I thought at the time, well, I'm writing the book. I'm the ultimate networker. I thought on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably an 8 or a 9, maybe even a 10. So then I took my test. My score was 6. I go, what? I'm the ultimate networker. But what I realized is when I wrote it out, I wasn't really doing the things that I was teaching or talking about as well as I should. And I go, wow, I said that this is what you should do, but I'm not doing it all the time. So basically, I had to retrain myself. And I took the test after a couple of months, and I was up to about an 8 because I started actually doing what I said. The old phrase, don't do what I do, do what I say. So that's actually, to become a really good networker, you have to train yourself. Even reading my book isn't going to work. It won't. I'm telling you, you could get my book, you could read it, and people shake their head and go, oh, this sounds great. This sounds great. but how many people implement any of the education that they talk or read or go to in fact, I used to run that was the other thing in my career. I forgot to mention that. Back in the mid 2000s, for about 4 or 5 years, I ran the Nightingale Conant Speakers Bureau. I actually scheduled all the top speakers and motivators: Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, Dennis Commuta, Dennis Waitley. I mean, all Dr. Robert Schuller. Remember all those guys?
Oh, yeah.
So I scheduled those guys. I met all those guys. And the funny thing was, and we used to talk about it, that people come to these events. They spend thousands of dollars. They travel to Jamaica and to Hawaii to be with Tony Robbins. And they get rah-rah. They go for 3 days and they're inspired. I hate to be inspired. I want to be trained in something. To me, the word that people should think in their head is, I'm going to spend money to get trained, not to go to a Zoom call, not to listen to a bunch of great speakers. It's just a bunch of waste of time. It's great. It's interesting. It's better than going to, I guess, a rap concert. But if you don't train yourself in the skill that you're looking to, perfect, it's not going to work. So, in fact, my favorite analogy is, if you were in a foxhole being attacked by the enemy, would you rather be in a foxhole with a Navy SEAL who flunked out of high school or a straight A student from Annapolis? What's your pick there?
Yeah, I want the guy who knows what he's doing.
Exactly. That's the guy that knows what he's doing. It has nothing to do with education, going to seminars and reading books. It's getting trained in a skill. So that's the best tip I can give your listening audience. Whatever it is you want to improve, your salesman ability, networking, you want to become a better conversationalist, find a way to get trained with expert people, and then you will actually perfect the skill.
Yeah, and I'm big on finding people who love what they do and have good results from doing it. And then you model what they're doing, right? You follow along behind them.
That's a key, modeling. In fact, that's how I learned how to ski, Gene. When I was young, I never took a ski lesson. I used to go on the ski lift, and I'd watch all the best skiers come down the hill. And I'd say, how did they move their body? And I'd watch how they did it. And that's the same thing. Watch a good speaker. Listen to a good salesperson. That's how I learned how to meet women back in the day when I was single. My buddy was a playboy, and I was a nice guy, and I got terrible results. And I watched my buddy. He was over the top, belligerent, loud. The women loved him. And I said, okay, I'm going to be more like him, because I watched somebody that was having success. So you're right. That's a great strategy.
And I'm going to go back to what you said about you can read the book, but if you don't do it, you don't get results. And the way you said it took me back to what I end up talking about this in almost every episode that I do. First, you have to become aware of what it is that you don't have or that you need. Then you focus on how you actually want it to play out. But if you don't take action to get there, it's just a dream, or it's just a knowledge base, right?
Right. Well, that's why I have a test in my book called performance tracking, where you have to assess what kind of a networker you are today. And then once you realize it, then you can say, oh, wow, I'm weak in this area. I'm weak in that area. So that's exactly right. You got to have some kind of a baseline. You got to know where you're at and where do I want to get?
Exactly.
How do I want to be? So that's perfect. Well said.
Exactly. And it shows up everywhere. If you're having that issue in this part of your life, you're having the same issue in other parts. You're not focused on what you want. You don't know what you want. Maybe you're just, floating along wherever the events or the internet takes you. But if you don't know where you want to go, you're never going to get there. Or if you do get there, you won't know that you did it.
Goal setting is one of the hardest things for people to do. One of my favorites in goal setting is Brian Tracy. Did you ever listen to any of his stuff?
Sure.
Yeah, he's, if anybody out there is listening, if you want to get some good goal setting advice, get Brian Tracy's books or his tapes or whatever. Because he, out of all the guys I've heard talk about goal setting, he's got one of the best processes to personally set your goals and stuff. So he's a good one there.
Yeah, I'm one of those lifelong learner people. I'm always, I don't like to be bored, so I'm always learning new stuff, you know?
Well, one thing that I'm getting into big time is preventative healthcare and anti-aging. And because I'm 77, and believe it or not, in the last 5 years, out of 8 of my best friends and associates, these are people from 20, 30 years, 6 of them are gone out of 8. And it's like, I'm going, okay, how do I stay around longer? This is a survival thing now. It's not even education, man. What do I got to do to keep this engine going, you know?
Yeah, I just read a book yesterday called The Earth Diet, which is all about knocking out processed foods and focusing more on things that look like they naturally do, you know? So
well, not to get off this, I guess that's a little bit off the subject, but I did a deep dive into supplements and nutrition. In fact, I'm good friends with Bill Falloon. He owns Life Extension, probably the #1 research supplement company in the world. I'm an ex-engineer. I like trends. I read about all these diets. I study people. I talk to people that are in great shape. I talk to people that are sick. Like, what do you eat? What do you do? I'll be honest with you. I can't find anything that you could say, this is it. You eat this, you do this, it's going to work. I know people that have horrible, horrible diets. I mean, think about some of the rock stars. The Rolling Stones, Keith, what's his name?
Richard.
The guitar player. Yeah. His life was horrible. Alcohol, drugs, no exercise, eating garbage food. The guy's in his 80s playing rock guitar. Like Tommy Lee, the drummer for Motley Crue, he was on an interview recently, okay? And he said that at one point in time, for 10 years, he drank over 4 bottles of vodka a day, plus drugs. And he's now in his 60s, and he said he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, so far you're doing okay. I mean, he stopped that drinking, but what? That's crazy.
Well, some of it's just genetics. You can't, you don't have the same genetics as somebody else. Your cell structure is different than somebody else's, right?
Yeah.
But some of it we can influence, at least to a degree.
Yeah. So, well, the best thing to do is eat the best you can that makes you feel good. Don't eat a lot of junk food, processed foods, vegetables, fruits. I don't know. But, once in a while you can eat a Dorito. I love Doritos.
You probably can't just eat one.
I know. Oh, whoever invented Doritos, I like to shoot them. I love Doritos. And the other one,
it depends on the flavor. Some of them are just weird. They'll try different flavors occasionally. Some of them are good, and some of them are like, "What were you thinking?"
Well, the other one, my weakness is ice cream. I told my wife, do not buy ice cream because it actually talks to me. If I know that there's a half gallon of ice cream in the freezer, it's calling my name. It calls me. So I can't even have it in the house. I love ice cream. Anyway.
So it's a treat. It's a special treat for you when you're out sometimes.
Yeah, I still eat it once in a while. It's good. But anyway,
anything in moderation, anything in balance.
Exactly.
Anything too far out, either way, is not necessarily great for you.
Yep. No, that's for sure. So, I think, what you're doing is really great. The fact that, you have a lot of background and experience and you're bringing on experts for your listening audience. And I hope they take advantage of listening to all your shows. And, it's really great. How long have you been doing your show?
I've only been doing it for a year, believe it or not.
Okay. Well, it gets bigger and better, right?
Yeah. Well, like everything, like you keep reinventing, you keep going in different directions. I was in leadership for 36 years. And then I quit that to help deal with some issues with my elderly father, who's no longer here. And so I was in a different business, and this podcast became a way to integrate all of my background into one place. And I can have great conversations with people that I had never met before. Or some of them I knew.
That's a good point to bring up about careers. A lot of younger people don't realize this, but what you just said about taking care of elders, like you can have this great career. You could be doing having a lot of success, and then you have elder parents, or your spouse has elder parents. I just talked to a good friend up in Indianapolis when I was up there. He's in his 50s, and him and his wife just brought his wife's parents to live with them, and the guy's got Parkinson's. So all their plans that they're, in business, they're both entrepreneurs, is now going to take a big hit. They're going to have to rearrange things. So a lot of times, it's these, like a divorce, elder parents, that throws a monkey wrench into a lot of your business ideas and things you're trying.
So you have to be willing to pivot, right?
Yeah, that's a good word, pivot. Yeah. You got to learn, you got to be prepared to pivot.
Yep.
And learn how to pivot. So, those are all good points.
So we're coming up near the end of our time together, but you keep mentioning some things that you've written, and now you have a free resource for our listeners, I understand. Can you?
Yeah, I have. If anybody is interested, I'll be more than happy to send a PDF copy of my book, How to Be an Ultimate Networker, 5 Easy Steps. It's a really good book because what I did also, G, is I wrote the book, but all the books that I wrote, in the back, there's a chapter called a summary. If you don't want to read the book, go to the last chapter and read the bullet points. And it really says everything in the book. So there you go. I made it
just without the stories, probably.
Yeah, and this also has my test. This has the performance tracking test. So if somebody wants it, all they have to do is get their email address to you, and then you could forward it to me, and I'd be more than happy to send out a PDF copy of my book to help people become better networkers.
Cool. And we'll have the link below in the show notes. All you have to do is click on that link, and it will take you through that process, and you can get the free book.
Okay. And by the way, I don't remember, did I send you copies of my book?
No, you did not.
What's wrong with me? What's on me? Okay.
See, there's that follow-through part.
I'm going to, I guess, I don't know. Maybe I said I was when we talked previously, but I'll definitely make sure you're on the list.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And if you want to, you can give me a review of it, and also pass it on to any of your friends that, that you think could use it, because I want to get the message out. The more people I help, the better.
Cool. And that's a great philosophy to have, right? So many people are just in it for me, and in it for the money, and in it for the prestige. But if there's something that you can provide to someone else for nothing in return, that's a really great philosophy to have. So I want to thank you for being here. I really enjoyed our conversation. Again, the engineer from Ohio.
Yeah,
that's how I think it is. Ex-engineer. Sorry, but there's a mindset. I've worked with a lot of engineers. I've known a lot of engineers, and there's a mindset and a very logical progression that they go through in their thought process, which the whole database thing plays right into that.
Right. Okay.
So thank you for spending time with me today. I really enjoyed it.
Okay, Jean. Great. It's a pleasure to be on your show. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. And for the listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in for this episode. Until next time, this is your host, Jean Border, with the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast. Energy work to better your business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey.